starting from work methods measurement, we are left with the topic that is known as objective methods of measurement. In objective methods of measurement, we had taken a few measurement parameters of the body like heart rate, cardiac response, uh, your oxygen inhaling, exhaling capacity, your muscle activity, and the brain activities. So these are few parameters which we had taken. I will discuss some of these, not all, uh, for your syllabus content point of view. So now these are objective measures here. If we move further one by one, what we see, heart rate. Heart rate is a primary indicator whether the person is at work or at rest. Generally, it is assumed that the heart rate is about 60 beats per minute, uh, and it goes up when we are working and it goes down when we are at rest. The response of heart rate, what we obtain is something like at rest, it was this one, and when the person starts working, it goes up to a certain level, but it cannot go to any level which is there. So, and while the person goes in the recovery phase, then it goes down suddenly and goes back to the rest period. So these are all known as, this is rest, this is your working, and this is called as recovery phase. So now this is the response of heart rate with respect to work. So the percentage, it might go approximately from 60 to 160 or about. In very extreme cases, it goes to 200, but that is the case when we used to have a fire engines, coal fired engines, in which the person was appointed to throw the coal into the furnace throughout the running of the train, or in some of the hand-fed boilers where the person was uh, appointed to throw coal, and his chest was exposed for longer durations to heat as well as uh, the repetitive tasks. So this is a kind of, even if you start cycling, even if you start exercising, in all those cases, the pattern remains the same. You are at rest. If suppose it is a light work, it may go like this and then rest. If it is a heavy work, then it may go to very high and then go to the rest. So this is a response of heartbeat, which is nothing but oxygen is consumed to excess, and it turns out a linear relationship of O2 consumption and heart rate. There is a very proportional relationship of heart rate and O2 consumption. It is almost the similar kind of pattern we get over here. And this both increases with respect to working. But if working is added up with heat zone or added up with the hot weather, it increases the more stress. Therefore, heart rate is considered as a very basic and simple parameter to measure the level of exertion, level of fatigue to the person, that at what level of heartbeat the person is exposed to the work. Then you can see cardiovascular response. This is also in relation to, or what we call, cardiac response. Cardiac response is nothing but your Q, PQRST the wave, or your heart rate, or your blood flow to different parts of the body. There are there are certain things which are considered as response of heart, and these are all controlled by the availability of the oxygens. So cardiac output at the rest is, for example, at rest we are consuming 5 liters per minute. At working we are consuming 25 liters per minute for a heavy work. So there is a relationship which we can form with respect to the uh, relationship with respect to this. So this is a simple linear relationship of the response with respect to the work. Work is, or heavy work or light work or moderate work, is directly proportional to the value of heart rate, oxygen consumption, blood pumped by the heart. Now you see a typical response over here. If the person is at rest or the person is at heavy work. What you see over here from the study of Strand and Rodhell, which is taken from from the book of Sanders and McCormick, in this they have stated that the blood flow uh, during the rest and during the work is changes. So the response of the blood towards muscle is more during heavy work, and towards skin is more towards heavy work. So we can say that towards shell of the body is shell, or extremities or the limbs of the body have more blood flow with respect to working, or less blood flow when the person is at rest. So you see, when the person is at rest, we get more blood flow towards kidney, digestive system, urinary system, and heart rate. Sorry, these two systems get more blood flow while you are at rest, because your purification, your digestion, all these systems become more active uh, while you are at rest. That's why we take a rest after taking food or heavy food. We take a rest or we feel drowsiness kind of situation, because blood goes towards shell instead of going towards, sorry, towards core instead of going towards the shell parts of the body. So the body wants a kind of rest. So these are the relationships, the direct relationship in terms of values. It's quite difficult to form. However, we have a correlation possible between between fatigue and heart rate, between fatigue and O2 intake, between fatigue and blood flow to specific parts of the body, between fatigue and we can have blood pressure or systolic blood pressure or something like that, or activities of the muscles. So we can develop some kind of relationship, linear or non-linear or curvilinear or kind of relationship, but it is not an exact formula in between that, but correlation is very much possible. Then you see, this is, if you remember the response of heart rate, that was at rest, then working, then this. So the same thing which we get, this is rest, work, recovery. But this is a response of heart rate. Here we are getting a response of O2 intake. Now what you see, when you are at rest, your lungs are taking oxygen at a very lower level, that is basically called as tidal volume. If you convert it into RMS value, you can have it like this. Otherwise, then inhaling and exhaling at a very low level, this is called as your tidal volume when you are at rest. When you work, the oxygen intake goes up and up and up. And but this period is a kind of a startup of the work where lungs are not fully active to take the required oxygen immediately. So in the initial state, there is a deficit of oxygen, which in the recovery state, you your lungs recovers. So in the initial stage, the oxygen inhaling is low, even though the working is high. But at one point of time, it become a specific level of oxygen intake, for example, 10 liters per minute. And then in the recovery phase, it goes down, and but not immediately goes down. So there is no like 5 liters per minute, and here we again reach to 5 liters per minute. But that is achieved after we recover the deficit that was in the starting of the working. So this is a kind of pattern of oxygen. Therefore, one thing is called as VO2 max, the maximum capacity of inhaling. And with respect to the value of VO2 max of each person, we try to find out the rest periods, duration of the work, depending upon the work we require, we are able to calculate the rest periods. Now, if we slightly, this is called as maximum aerobic power. Maximum aerobic power is the maximum power of a person to inhale oxygen inhaling capacity. So maximum aerobic power is nothing but a voluntary measurement. You don't know, at one point of time the person become exhausted. So till that position to reach, it is very difficult to take. So this is mean maximum oxygen intake in male. This is just a kind of function, but that is uh, this is a mean value, although it goes to 6 uh, liters per minute. Now here I want to explain something about what is called as tidal volumes. When we inhale oxygen, our lungs are like packets of oxygen. Oxygen goes in, CO2 goes out, O2 and CO2. So there is some air remains in there. When lungs are working, there is a small level of oxygen inhaling, exhaling, and that is what is called as tidal volume. This tidal volume is the capacity of lungs, which is while that is at the rest level. When you inhale in inspiration, inspiration of oxygen and expiration of oxygen. So you inhale and you exhale. So instead of, this is just a rest period where you have some normal conditions. So in this case, if the person starts working, then this goes up, and then this goes slightly down and then come back. So this volume, up to what level it goes down, the remaining oxygen which remains in the lungs always is called as residual volume. This is our residual volume of lungs. This is called as tidal volume. This is expirational volume, where how much we can throw back out of the lungs. Then this level is called as inspirational volume. Okay, so these are levels for normal lungs. But depending upon, this is a total volume intake. This this area is called as forced residual um, force bronchial capacity, force capacity of the lungs to, and this is called as vital capacity of the lungs. Vital capacity means the working capacity of the lungs, how much it can inhale and exhale. And this is the residual volume which remains there. So sometimes due to the obstruction, sometimes due to the constriction, sometimes to the inflation of the lungs, this residual volume disturbs and your vital capacity goes down of inhaling and exhaling the oxygen. And what happens when we consider this thing in terms of volume at the volume at the this level. Suppose we have zero level of oxygen in the lungs and we want to calculate the flow rate. So for the flow rate of the lungs, some oxygen remains up there. We consider it back to the approximately 6 liters. So some oxygen remains there. So it may be 2, sorry, that may be something like 2, 4, 6. So when you inhale at a particular level, your lungs goes up there, flow rate is more, and then your goes back. This is called as spirometry. Using spirometry, when inhaling and exhaling capacity is uh, measured. So this total volume, this total volume, this is over here, is called as total lungs capacity. This is total lungs capacity. This is your inspiration and this is your expiration. So this is the cycle which we get over here. This is what is we call, this is called as vital capacity. But this vital capacity gets disturbed. This is your residual volume. This is your residual volume. So this gets disturbed when the lungs are not behaving properly. What happens when we start inhaling in the initial phase? In the initial phase, if we consider it to be volume and this is time, suppose 0 seconds, suppose 10 seconds. So now in this case, what happens? In the first second, the inhaling is quite high and then it goes to a normal level. When it is at a normal level, this is total is called as forced vital capacity. This is forced vital capacity and we can have some residual volume above that. This is will be your total capacity. But when you see at the first second, this is at the first second. This level is called as force expressional volume. This is called as force expressional volume, which is an about force expression volume, which is about uh, more than 80% of the total volume capacity is considered as good. So this is what we see, that how much is the ratio of force expression volume. Force expression volume is nothing but oxygen inhaling in the first second of the start versus force vital capacity. If this percentage is more than this percentage is more, it is good. If this percentage is less, it is bad. If this percentage is less, then we might have a pattern something like this. So that is a kind of obstruction in the flow in your lungs over here. There may be kind of obstruction, and because of the obstruction, the inhaling is not as quick as it is supposed to be. And if there is some problem with the lungs, or lungs is constricted, they don't have the much power to to keep more oxygen, or the level is reduced, then the pattern is disturbed. So pattern which is here can be disturbed in either way. Either you get something pattern like this, where residual volume is more, but inhaling, exhaling is not more, or the residual volume is low and inhaling and exhaling is not much disturbed. So there can be, these are both like lung size is disturbed or obstruction is there. But we are not concerning about these diseases. Basically, our aim is to know what is the vital capacity, what is the force vital capacity, and so that we can assess the the level of stress in the work, or level of exertion body is putting into the work, and we are trying to know O- how much O2 is required in working compared to rest and maximum. So based on this ratio, like a linear relationship, working minus rest upon maximum minus rest will give you the percentage relationship, which is the requirement of the task. Depending upon this ratio, I'll show you the formula in the next lecture. That will help you to calculate the work rest period. So this is what all about oxygen capacity. Coming back to what is known as electromyography, we mostly use in assessment of manual task where uh, forearm or hand or shoulder muscles are involved. Uh, so in those cases, we assess the electrical activity of muscles of the upper extremities. And this electrical activity also, in terms of electrical activity at working minus electrical activity at rest upon electrical activity of the maximum capacity minus electrical activity of rest, gives a proportion, gives an idea how much that muscle is involved in the respective work. So all this electrical activity is generated on the muscle due to the action potential of the muscles. As I told you, in axons of the motor units, when the flow of sodium and potassium ion takes place, the body action potential changes from plus 40 to minus 90 or plus 30 to minus 70 or something like that. So this is depolarization and repolarization states where sodium ions goes in there, and when there is more opening, then potassium ions comes out of the cells, and these actions create body potential, which is available in the form of electrical activities over the muscles, and these electrical activity we call electromyography, or the the curve which we obtained is called as electromyogram, and this is what we have is called as the signal raw signal of electrical activity of the muscle. When you take an RMS value, you get a signal like this. If you correlate this signal with respect to your load, this is then it will be nothing but your, sorry. So this is load, raw signal. Raw signal is the red one, and red is raw signal, and this blue is your RMS, root mean squared values of EMG. So this is what is an indicator of muscular contraction or muscular load. So sometimes in terms of RMS value of EMG of working with respect to rest and maximum capacity gives us an idea how much muscle loading is there, how much muscle is active in that particular thing. So this is what are the certain properties of the EMG signal. EMG signal is an algebraic summation of the motor unit action potential. There are many motor units active in the muscles. So it is assumed that it is a summation of all the electric potentials generated over there. It is an envelope of rectified and low pass filters. We can have a kind of filter over there. So mostly this EMG signal is supposed to be between 50 to 500 hertz. The signal properties are like this. Fatigue leads to increase in electrical activity, however, reduce in frequency of excitation. So electrical activity, the RMS value may increase if the muscle is getting fatigued, because with lower excitation of the motor units, you have to put more efforts. But the frequency of excitation of the motor units goes down, and that is a kind of indication of the muscle fatigue. So these two parameters in correlation to muscle effort and muscle fatigue is considered. EA can be used as a parameter of the physiological cost of manual working. So in general, we can say that this is nothing but physiological cost of manual working. Okay, so this is one of the important parameters. As we know, we have discussed this relationship of the nerves to the muscles, central nervous system to the muscular or skeletal system. The connection is through the motor neurons we see over here. This is what we have already discussed. Now these are electrode having two this is interfacing with the muscles. We get amplified signal because it is in millivolts. We convert it into plus minus 5 volts, and then we see the signal over here. So this signal which we obtained is quite amplified signal of the that is summation of the excitation of many motor units. This is summation of electrical activity of all motor units recruited in that activity. So this signal is obtained in this form, and from this signal we have one thing called as very simple parameters I am taking up here, but there are n number of statistical parameters which are taken out from a raw signal, and then the researchers analyze the pattern of the activity. However, there are two basic signals: the RMS value of the signal and the frequency pattern of the signal. So this is the basic indicator of the effort. This indicates your effort, and frequency indicates your fatigue. This is a skin on which electrodes are placed, and electrodes gives you a signal. And depending upon the cleaning of the skin, cleaning of this, all these things are considered. Now, if you see here, this is the basic. There are many muscles which are in action: deltoid muscles for shoulder action, bicep muscles for upper arm action. There are extensor and flexor muscles for your forearm. There are pronator muscles for rotation of the forearm. So these are some of the muscles which are indicated here, but we are not going in those details. Only the thing is, if there is only one muscle also, then from that muscle we are capturing the data. So from this muscle we are capturing a data, and data is in the form of raw EMG signal. Any signal you have, you sometimes require filtering. When you filter the signal, you lose some information and you get some information. Some information is more clarified and some information gets hidden. So this is a natural phenomena. We can't do anything for this. But however, to understand the pattern of the signal, from raw signal, we are only catch the idea that whether the muscle is in action or at rest. But from this RMS pattern, we can know that how much active muscle is and how far the muscle is active. So we are filtering the muscles and getting the RMS values here, root mean square values here, and the pattern is somewhat visible, which is giving more clarity in understanding. Now this is what is called as normalized percentage EMG values. What it is, basically we calculate when the muscle is at a maximum effort, we calculate the RMS value that is called as EA maximum, electrical activity maximum. When the muscle, we want person to be very, very relaxed in that particular area of the body, and then we consider it zero or minimum value of minimum RMS value of the muscle. When the muscle comes in action, then this is an electrical activity of working. So the percentage RMS value or percentage normalized EA value is nothing but EA while working minus EA at rest upon EA maximum minus EA at rest into 100. So this is the percentage value which is used as a standard measure of muscles contribution in that respective work. So this is what is called as the normalized value of EMG. Now, to know the level of fatigue, this is an RMS value which we calculate, but this RMS value you can calculate for for rest period, you can calculate for maximum effort, which may be something like this, or this is a working effort. So this may be maximum, working, or rest. So the method of calculating all this will remain the.
आपका माइक ऑफ हो गया, माइक्रोफोन ऑफ हो गया आपका. आई कैन नॉट हियर यू.
Thank you,
आपका
thank you,
माइक. ओके.
thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you.
जी जी.
Sorry. So in case, as we were calculating the RMS value to know the effort, so effort of muscle was calculated through percentage EA, that was based on the RMS values from rest, work, and maximum. It may be something like this or maximum. But when we have to find out the fatigue or relationship of the fatigue, we perform what is called as power spectrum analysis. Power spectrum analysis is nothing but based on Fourier transformation. Fourier transformation we have learned in applied mathematics courses. Now, using Fourier transformation, we convert time domain signal into frequency domain signal. Frequency domain signal. So what we see is we convert this is time versus electrical activity, raw electrical activity. We convert it into frequency versus amplitude or power of the signal, and we see that how much frequency spectrum, because there will be n number of frequencies, because there are n number of motor units, so there will be a spectrum, but we can calculate some median or mean frequency. So median frequency of that power frequency domain signal is an indication of muscle fatigue at different time zones. For example, starting of the work, suppose this is rest, sorry, this is beginning of the work, work going on, and extreme conditions of working or exhaustion level. So when we divide this, we can pick up a signal from the beginning, and we can see the median frequency is quite high in this signal. But when the work goes on further, the median frequency goes down. Signal is squeezed. Signal shifts towards the lower frequency spectrum, and then further shifts to lower spectrum frequency. So frequency zone remains, maybe suppose this is the frequency zone 0 to 500 hertz, this may be 0 to 500 hertz. The zone is not much disturbed, but the median frequency has been shifted, and if you plot that median frequency versus contraction time or working time, you will see a kind of pattern that will be a decreasing in nature, and that is in direct correlation to muscle fatigue. So this is a direct correlation of muscle fatigue with respect to the EMG signal. There is one more parameter is called as galvanic skin response. This is nothing but a simple resistance of the body, the resistance of the skin, which we measure, and that is sometimes gives us a response of correlation, but not very well relationships are established for this case. Correlation with fatigue of the body, fatigue or stress on body. So these are so these were certain basic parameters which were called as objective measurement of muscle fatigue, objective measurement of work stress as we have discussed in the beginning, that there is stress and strain, and what the strain we get on the body, that can be measured in terms of certain direct or indirect parameters. So direct parameters, we are calling them as objective measurements. Indirect parameters, we are calling them as psychophysical methods of measurement. So this was all about the basics of uh, work measurement techniques, and then we will move further to kind of physical loading on the body and converting into certain ergonomic parameters which can help us on workplace. So this was all for today.